just when you were kind of looking forward to that series, do you think experience is the ultimate separator? Do you think that there's a talent on one side or the other that kind of takes the cake?
Yeah, and I also think it applies to the coaching staff too. Chris Finch at times, even though I think he's a great coach, he's looked lost as his team was in free fall. Taylor Jenkins, even though that was an amazing play by Ja at the end of the game, Taylor Jenkins jumping around the sideline, it's awesome to see, but it's an indication of an inexperienced coach. These teams are experiencing this for the first time. It's amazing to watch, but the Warriors have got to be like, okay, come play the adults here pretty soon. Now, I will say this, if you're a Warriors fan, I would be worried about Karl Towns. That is a real matchup challenge for the Warriors. It is really undercut what the Grizzlies do defensively. They have been scrambling to deal with Towns during this series, even though that's a 7 seed. So I know you're not like, you're probably, if you're a Warriors fan, saying, oh, I hope that the Wolves can get 2 wins because they're the 7 seed. I almost think that you'd rather see the Grizzlies and that beast Ja Morant, because the Towns matchup for the Warriors, and if Draymond is watching right now, he's probably cursing at me, saying, let me at him. He was already working on it yesterday. But I think the Towns matchup is the one they'd like to avoid in that second round.
Okay, so I went and looked this up, Brian. I knew you were going to go there.
Really quickly, that's a bold statement because he just went toe-to-toe with the MVP and maybe the back-to-back MVP that plays a similar position, more skilled, more talent. Ramona?
Yeah, okay, so Towns is an incredible shooter. He has so much. I mean, 5 years ago, you would have said Karl Towns is the guy you want to start a franchise with, okay, in this league. He hasn't built off of that, okay? When Karl Towns won Rookie of the Year, he finished first. Jokic finished third that year. Yeah. Things have changed. They have swapped positions in this league. Brian, I went and looked it up. Draymond Green, last 5 seasons defending Nikola Jokic, 13 of 30 against him. Draymond Green defending Karl Towns, 13 of 30 the last 5 years. He's done a pretty good job on him now. Towns' game, though, you're right, it does stretch the floor out. It'll force Draymond away from the basket. But when the Warriors play small, then it's just a matter of can Draymond deal with the height disadvantage there. And I think he's done that. And throughout his career, he's done that. Maybe it takes Kevon Looney away a little bit, but it spreads him out a little bit. I feel almost like if they get Memphis, it reminds me a bit of when this young team is coming. This is going to be the team in the NBA for the next several years. Reminds me a bit of when the Lakers played against the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2010, when the Thunder had Harden, Westbrook, Durant, and you knew that team was coming, but the Lakers had one more gasp in them before the Thunder was going to take over. That's what that series would feel like in the second round here.
Yeah, and look, one thing that we will agree on is when I look at both Memphis and Minnesota, you saw Steven Adams has been taken out of this series.
Yep.
And if Steven Adams is going to be taken out of the series, and he was so important to everything that they did during the regular season, if he's going to be taken out in that series, I don't see how he gets to play against the Golden State Warriors, even with Draymond. Because if you do a drop with Draymond, that means Draymond is just doing passes. And then you go Jaren Jackson Jr. And Jaren Jackson Jr., he's been in foul trouble. He hasn't had the impact that you thought he was going to have.
Because he's guarding Towns.
Yeah, he's been trying to do tons of foul trouble. I think Draymond would do a little bit better job of that. But on that Minnesota side, they have all of the tools. They have played better basketball in this series for longer than the Grizzlies have, but the Grizzlies are up 3-2. If they would have won that game 3, and where they had a 21-point lead,
2 games they should have won.
2 games they should have won. This series could potentially be over. So I think it's going to be really, really tight. Quickly, Ramona, if you were the Golden State Warriors, which team would you want to play?
I'll go with Minnesota just because I think they have the experience. But I have a lot of respect for Memphis. I just think they're so deep. They're built a lot of ways like the Warriors were built at the beginning of their dynasty, just long, athletic, young players who can switch everything. So I'd probably rather play the Timberwolves, but that's, they're 7-10 against the Timberwolves the last 5 years. So the Timberwolves have taken some games off. And then you just remember the last 5 years. Minnesota wasn't good. So the fact they have 7 wins against them is something.
Well, neither were the Golden State Warriors the last 2 years. In all honesty, they weren't very good. But and then you forget about the Wiggins. You got Wiggins, you got D'Angelo Russell. So that actually adds a little bit of element. But God, how great would it be to see Ja Morant, Steph Curry, Desmond Bain, Klay Thompson, Patrick Beverly. Patrick Beverly, if he can get there and he can rally this team for two more wins, and then what D'Angelo Russell. So either way, the Golden State Warriors are in an amazing spot. They get to sit and wait, and I'll tell you this from experience, the only thing that they're waiting on is they want a Game 7. They want this series to go as long as they possibly can. They want these guys to beat themselves up. They want guys to be exhausted mentally, physically, and emotionally, because that's where you get the advantage. When you're rested, when you're ready to go, when you're ready to fight, that's when you get the advantage.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.